We are live. That's right, for a WWE SummerSlam 2024 Q&A special. So get involved with all your questions on all things WWE SummerSlam this year. We're going to speculate on some of the results, some of the surprises, and potential returns as well. But I'm not alone for this one. I'm joined by someone who's actually going to be in attendance at SummerSlam. Someone I'm sure is looking forward to the show very, very much. From On the Mark Wrestling Podcast, it is someone who's very much too sweet. It is Carl Gagliardi. How are you doing, my friend?
Oh, I am doing fantastic, Steve. Always a good time to be on the channel. I know we talked about this being long overdue, so I'm glad we were able to do this here today. And now we are a little over a week away from SummerSlam, so things are starting to heat up. I'm excited to chat with you.
Absolutely. And we're going to make this an action-packed show as well. 60-minute time limit. It's almost like an Iron Man match, you could say, for this one. And we'll be diving into the questions nice and early. But first and foremost, your excitement levels for SummerSlam, as you will be in attendance.
It's a 10 out of 10. It might even be an 11. But to be honest with you, Steve, the recent matches that they announced, obviously with Punk getting cleared and whatnot, and him having that match with Drew McIntyre, knowing what's going on with the Liv and Rhea story as of late, it's a 10 out of 10 for me. I don't know about you.
I'm very much hyped for this year's SummerSlam. I think there's a lot of potential. This could be the best SummerSlam in years. I really, really do, because I think a lot of the storylines have been booked really, really well. You've just mentioned there about Punk and Drew has been a match that we've been building since Punk's return last November. So it's been pretty well built, and it's his return match as well since the Royal Rumble. Liv and Rhea have been cooking with what they're doing. Dominic Mysterio is going to be a very interesting nugget in amongst all of that. We've got Gunther and Damian Priest, which, to be fair, probably on paper, people would have said, I'm not so excited for that one, but they've been delivering, in my opinion, when it comes to the promo work. LA Knight, Logan Paul. I mean, come on, we can go all day here with the matches they've got here. We've even got Cody versus Solo, which we've not even mentioned. Quickly, what has been your thoughts with Solo Sikoa actually being put into the main event spot, going for this championship? Does it feel like the right time for you?
It does feel like the right time, because if it isn't Solo Sikoa versus Cody at SummerSlam, then what match are you actually going to be going with? And I know a lot of people would probably say Randy Orton, but something tells me they want to prolong that a little bit. You know, Randy just recently returned at Survivor Series in November, so let him have this established babyface run for a bit. And then inevitably, we are all expecting Randy to probably turn on Cody. The tea leaves are definitely out there, but yeah, I totally buy into Solo Sikoa being in this main event.
Yeah, I have as well, particularly the way they've been building him in recent times. I think there was a point where it was really hot after WrestleMania. It cooled down for a couple of months, but I feel since Money in the Bank, they've really turned the temperature back up again. It was important that Solo picked up the victory over Cody at Money in the Bank, then following with the brutal getting rid of Paul Heyman, the way they did that Madison Square Garden. How dare they? And then obviously it's just carried on from there. And obviously with the speculated rumor returns, potentially, could we be talking about a Roman Reigns return? We will go into it, but before we do, I know we want to acknowledge you, but we need to acknowledge our chat first, because there are quite a few of them already in the house, and it's very nice to have them all here. We'll start with Pierre, who's very much in the Cody fashion. He says, guys, what do you want to talk about? Absolutely. SummerSlam is going to be the answer to that. Eric Douglas in the house, hope you're doing well. Also, along with Ed Fries, who will be on this channel tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be talking NXT Great American Bash Night 1, and maybe we'll sprinkle into Night 2 as well. We'll see how we go, but we've got a lot to discuss with Night 1. Let's be too sweet, says Pierre. Absolutely, indeed. And Eric said, and that is too sweet. So we got a few of those too sweets in the house, which is good to see. Kicking it with Leo in house as well. Hope you're doing well. Leo says Damian should beat Gunther and Finn should turn afterwards, because it looks like for the most part Finn and JD are in support of Liv and have somewhat pledged their allegiance to her. Interesting comment, and could be the first talking point of the video. Let's go into that, shall we? Because obviously we mentioned about Liv and Rhea. Obviously the story's been building pretty nicely. Obviously this past week on Raw, Dominic Mysterio has made his feelings very clear. Potentially, he's actually said, Liv, get out of my life. We've seen the tears from Liv Morgan. We've seen the lick of the face from Rhea Ripley. Where do we see this one going? I mean, do we think that with the stuff going on backstage, obviously Dominic Mysterio was kind of led into Liv Morgan? Did Finn Balor do that on purpose?
Man, Finn Balor's up to some sketchy stuff, Steve. I do not trust that man. Every single backstage segment, it seems like he's doing something behind someone's back. There's so many wrinkles to this story and potential avenues that they could go down. And that's the beauty, I think, right now of the quote unquote new era is it's not as predictable as it once was. I mean, I'm sure you can attest to that because you've been doing predictions like myself for a while now on YouTube. At times, cards were very predictable, but ever since Triple H started being the head of creative in the WWE, I feel like there's multiple options, and that the same goes for this story right here. I could definitely see Finn Balor and JD, like he said, aligning with Liv Morgan. But I really don't know where Dominic's going to go. Sure, he said he's aligning with Mommy on Raw, but we all know he could easily just go and side with Liv at SummerSlam, and it would make a lot of sense. So, yeah, I can't say definitively what's going to happen, but the fact that they are keeping you guessing, I think, is the beauty of all this.
It is the beauty of the whole thing. And like you say, even if you might think an answer is definitely going to happen, say, for example, I mean, I've gone out and said, I think Dominic will go with Liv Morgan. That's why I think it's going to be the long-term play. But it's maybe not necessarily a guarantee at SummerSlam. That's what I'm going to say now. I don't think I've said that on the channel before, but say hypothetically, Dominic Mysterio accidentally cost Rhea Ripley the match at SummerSlam, where it just drags us over another month to the point that, like, he's screwed up again. And then that leads to actually the turns going later down the line, maybe at Bash at Berlin, for example. It could make sense to do at a big show like SummerSlam because it's one of the biggest shows of the year. But at the same time, it's going to be hard to see how it's going to play around because I do think eventually Rhea will leave the group. But I also think, and his name's mentioned in this, I think Damian Priest is leaving the group as well at some stage because there's been friction there as well with Damian and Finn Balor.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if maybe Damian and Rhea just, stay together on their own and they're just a pair of sorts, or they bring in Carlito. You really don't know for sure, but speaking of Damian Priest, the way he's been positioned lately, I thought has been fantastic. I mean, he is presenting himself as a babyface. I don't think he's full out babyface yet, but I think Gunther is that perfect guy, that perfect opponent that can bring that side out of him. And of course, you have all the other Judgment Day shenanigans that could cause him to naturally become a babyface after this. So that's another thing that I'm keeping my attention on is what direction is Damian Priest going to go after this match?
It's very interesting because I feel the same as you, and I think WWE have purposely done these feuds for this reason. I think Gunther perfectly done. Obviously, Gunther's been one of these people saying that Damien from the streets and stuff, and I've been raised better and stuff. It's natural to get that heat, solidify Gunther as the true heel of this. Damien has become the natural babyface, whether people wanted to cheer him before or not. This has solidified it. Obviously, he's taken on the likes of Drew McIntyre previously as well. Of course, Drew would always be the babyface in Scotland unless CM Punk turns up. But otherwise, you would turn around and say to yourself that there is a potential with the outside of the home location market that Damon's gone through a few of these matches. So I do think it's something that's going to come. And if I'm honest, I would say I'm guessing around Bad Blood time, which is, a couple of months away. I wouldn't be surprised to see Damian and Rhea against the new formation of Judgment Day, Liv, Carlito, JD, Finn. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is the reason why someone has been sniffing around for Mummy's number, because if Dominic Mysterio is on the original side of Judgment Day, you could get Jey Uso on the action, and that's how we can start building up some teams potentially for War Games, which could even feature Sami Zayn. However, maybe Jake and Sami might have other commitments on the Blue brand in a few months as well.
I totally forgot the Jey Uso of all this now, too. That's another wrinkle into the story that they're starting to tell recently. Just another thing to think about in both of these title matches at SummerSlam. Because we know Jey Uso doesn't have a match right now for the second biggest PLE, and he's main event Jey Uso. So it's very weird, but he at least is involved in one of, if not the biggest stories going right now in WWE.
Absolutely. I mean, let's ask that question quickly before we go into some more comments. Why is Jey Uso not being featured in a match on SummerSlam? Is it simply because there's not a space on the card, or is it because actually maybe we are going to perhaps transition him back over to SmackDown for, I don't know, maybe some Bloodline shenanigans?
That's what I'm thinking. I think it's a waiting game with Jey Uso, and I think a lot of it also has to do with when Jimmy Uso is going to return, because I think I speak for the majority of the fan bases. Yeah, main event, Jey Uso is fantastic. It's working, it's getting over, but we love the Usos. That's what we knew, is that tag team. I call them the greatest tag team of all time. A lot of people would agree with that. So I do think it's kind of a holding pattern right now for main event Jey Uso. It's not taking away that he's not doing anything, wrong or right, but I just don't think they need to, pull the trigger quite yet with him.
Yeah, I can hear you for that one, and obviously I do feel the fact that Jay hasn't had that single success. It's a bit of a disappointment because I would have loved to see him with a mid card championship or something like that in the last 12 months because I think certainly his momentum has warranted it. But at the same time, I would turn around and say that I think a lot of fans are expecting it's a countdown at this point of when, is Roman Reigns going to return? When is Jimmy going to return? And when is Jay going to align again? Because I think that's what every wrestling fan is predicting to happen. So unfortunately, not fully original here with this comment. But what I would say is, which leads to the return surprises and that sort of stuff leading into SummerSlam. Is Roman Reigns going to return? And if so, when is the right moment? Is it during the Cody versus Solo match or is it after?
I would hope it's after. I just don't need more Bloodline shenanigans involved in the main event. We saw that all the time with Roman Reigns as the undisputed champion. So I don't need it again in this match. So if Roman Reigns is going to return, I think you do it afterwards. Maybe Cody Rhodes retains. The Bloodline starts beating him down regardless, and that's when you get, the Avengers assembling once again. You get a Jimmy Uso. What if you get a Hikuleo? That's a name we really haven't even mentioned quite yet. And then you get a Roman Reigns, and that's kind of how you even up the odds a little bit. That's what would make the most sense for me, but I can't sit here, Steve, and definitively say Roman Reigns is going to show up at SummerSlam because I don't know what the right time is, because I'm sure they could find another time to do this at Bad Blood or at Bash at Berlin, or heck, even do it on a Friday Night SmackDown. Who knows?
A lot of returns are happening on SmackDowns or Raws as of late. It seems to not always be the PLE, but sometimes you do get these surprises. Obviously, we mentioned the Bloodline. Obviously, we've got the Tonga Loa debut for the Bloodline and this year at Backlash, although when Jacob Fatu came in, it was a SmackDown. So it all depends, but this Roman Reigns just feels bigger than a random episode of SmackDown, in my personal opinion. I would say I can't definitively say, but I would say that I am fairly confident on a prediction. I would say right now he does come in. And like you say, it is of the aid of Cody Rhodes. It depends on whether it is during with a ref bump, which of course a lot of Bloodline matches usually have a ref bump in there somewhere, or it is after the match. But like you say, it would be a big moment with Paul Heyman to come out and then obviously Roman to come out.
Yes.
If you get a Jimmy as well, it makes it all the more fascinating. But it could also be more fun to see how Roman repairs those relationships. For example, how do you get Jey Uso back over? I'm just showing up. It just feels a bit sudden. Triple H's stories seem to like to be, I don't know, it's almost like you plant a seed and you watch it grow. You have to water it each and every day to see the results.
Yeah, you kind of see that with the Wyatt Six to start off their run on Monday Night Raw. It's a slow burn. They're telling stories. They're building up these characters before they get into the actual ring. But it's crazy to me to think that we could be living in a world where Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes are tag teaming together at a PLE when these two just feuded the last 2 years over the biggest title in all professional wrestling. But that's the spot that we are in, and I think that's what needs to happen, because if Roman comes back, nobody's going to boo that man. Even if they decided, hey, let's keep him as the tribal chief, as the bad guy, as the heel, and have him just kind of feud with Solo for the top, it's not going to work. People are going to embrace him. People want to support him, and that's what we're going to get. When we're going to get it, like I said, I do not know. I do selfishly hope it is at SummerSlam, because I'll be there, and I've been a part of many big moments in the past live, so this would just be right up there with it. Because honestly, Steve, I was talking to my co-host on the pod. I think that Roman Reigns return pop could be the biggest pop of all time. It's going to be tough because it's in a football stadium. It's not enclosed, but you're definitely going to feel it if it does happen.
I think it's going to be up there. I think it's going to be one of those that we're going to talk with some of the legendary ones over the years. And I think you're right. This could be up there, one of them, the biggest of all time. Certainly feel bigger than the last time the Roman retained. Obviously, we had to watch you through our TV sets the last time and just a few sets around the ringside. But this time it's a full-on stadium. I think it'll be very special when Roman does return indeed. Let's go to a few comments then. Let's get a few of your questions up, as this is a Q&A after all. This year will be the biggest SummerSlam of all time. I think certainly there is a possibility that could be the case.
Hey, what if Brock Lesnar shows up? I know that's a name that not a lot of people want to talk about, but when I think of Mr. SummerSlam, I think of Brock Lesnar. Could you imagine Brock Lesnar teaming with Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes? I mean, that's never going to happen. That's just me hypothetically thinking, but That's a name we haven't heard of in a while. I don't think, he's being pushed out of the company. The last that I've heard, I think they still could repair that relationship.
I think it's all depending on how things roll with everything that has happened. Obviously, he has been off screen I think he was due to return at the Rumble. That news came out, and he's not been seen since. Like you say, he's not been actively released from the contract. Obviously, he's just at home present. So I suppose if, depending on how things play out, he could make a return at some point. I wouldn't put it past that happening. But like you say, I mean, to be fair, I mean, you mentioned the word Avengers earlier on. You have Brock, Roman, and Cody on the same team. I think it's pretty much near unstoppable. It could be like that old. Do you remember the old Raw? But I think it was like 2013 or something like that. It was like John Cena and Randy Orton versus the entire roster on the graphic. It could be something like that, really, with those three. They could just take everybody out. But
I try to forget those days, but you reminded me, so thanks.
I'm very sorry. I went through the pain, so I'm going to share it with everybody. We all bruised together. One more return. Then we would just strictly go with questions, because then literally, I think you guys are the ones that should control the show. But I have another name that's going to be thrown out. Then it's a name that's been in the rumor. We've seen this female superstar been working hard in training since she got injured. It is the one, the only Miss Charlotte Flair. And I know you're a big fan of Charlotte. Would you have her in a song potentially that could return at a SummerSlam, potentially with being a SmackDown superstar for one? Could potentially come in around the Bayley and Nia Jax scene.
It would be interesting to get her involved in that title scene, especially now that you have the wrinkle of Tiffany Stratton, who holds the Money in the Bank briefcase. Like, hypothetically speaking, what if Nia Jax does win this title against Bayley, and Tiffany kind of teases the cash in, or vice versa? Bayley retains and Tiffany tries to cash in, but Charlotte Flair is the one to prevent Tiffany Stratton from cashing it in, because, Charlotte and Bayley on screen haven't really had a tight relationship, but we do know they are two of the four horsewomen, so they have those ties. I think that would be the opportunity to do so if she were to return. But Steve, I just don't know. I mean, we see the videos that she's posting. She's a cyborg. I mean, she's way ahead of schedule right now on that John Cena return schedule, I think. But I just think it's a little too soon. But I'll tell you what, there definitely is a chance.
There's a chance. Never say never. And I like the way you've booked that, by the way, particularly to stop the cash-in attempt happening, especially if Bayley was to retain. I think that certainly can make a lot of sense. And like you say, Bayley and Charlotte have been big rivals over the years, but to have some work together with the history that they've got, I think it would make a lot of sense as well. Eric asking us what match we're least looking forward to at SummerSlam, most and least. So for Eric, it is a draw between Rhea, Punk, and the least is Cody versus Solo. Fair enough. So what match was you say you're most looking forward to, and then what is the least?
Most is tough because there's like a tie between all of them right now for me. But I think my answer is going to be CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre, with Rollins as a special guest referee, just because of the history that all three men have together. So that would be the one I'm most looking forward to. Least excited for, unfortunately, probably Bayley and Nia Jax, and that's not taking anything away from either woman. I've said it numerous times, Nia's return has been great, and Bayley's a legend in herself, but if I had to pick one, that would be my least favorite.
To be honest, to save some time, both the same answers for me. I want to talk about a little bit later on to do with the special guest referee of Seth Freakin Rollins, but we'll save that to a bit later in the video. If you've enjoyed it at this point, make sure to hit the like button. It really does help the channel a long way, and obviously it helps more people come and see us here on YouTube, and we'd really like that as well. So if you can do that, we really, really would appreciate it. Be asked, do you think Finn Balor is the real ally to Liv Morgan? It seems like it, yes.
He's the sneaky link, guys. That's what we're going to call him, Sneaky Link Balor.
It's all about the key, Fabe. He had the key, remember, back in the time with the hotel. So, yeah, doesn't have to be what you think. Kicking it with Leo, do you think Liv and Rhea's story with the hype around it would make sense to main event SummerSlam?
I don't know if you would agree with me. There's just so many other matches on that card that I think have a better case.
For me, I would turn around and say that I feel the most worthy match to main event the show would be Punk and Drew. But I think because of the fact of the Bloodline story now, I think it's going to really go into overdrive. And I am confident and feel, as a prediction, I'm not confident he'll beat it, but as a prediction, I'm confident that Roman will return. I think that is your main event moment. So I think that's why I think that match goes on last. Cody versus Solo for me is the one. But certainly this story has been one of the best, if not the best story going into SummerSlam this year. I think it's definitely in the top 2 for sure.
I mean, I agree with you. I think Solo and Cody has the main event just based on the fact that you have to assume someone is going to happen after that match.
Absolutely, indeed. Love that comment from Pierre, by the way. Nubico, hope you're doing well. Thank you for joining us, getting involved with the questions as well. Pierre says, last Monday Night on Raw, I thought Finn Balor was a little bit shady. He was indeed.
Kind of every week.
It seems to be every week at the moment. And obviously, Livers helps him win a tag team title. So it's not just one way. It just seems to be going both ways as well. Leo says, do you think the window of Finn Balor becoming world champion is closed with everything that is going on?
No, just because he's one step removed from being a world champion. He's in a faction with a guy that holds that title. So you have that story in itself that you could tell as a fallout from SummerSlam. And who knows? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw Finn Balor get a world heavyweight title shot by the end of the year.
I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a shot. The only thing is becoming world champion, I think, is the different level. And I think if with Leo's question, it's not necessarily Finn Balor for me that makes it feel that it's getting tougher. It's the talent around. I mean, he's on a show Monday Night Raw that right now, Damian is the champion. Gunther feels impending whenever it's going to be, whether it's at SummerSlam or Bash at Berlin. You've then got the emerging talent of a Bron Breakker. You've got Seth Rollins, CM Punk, and Drew McIntyre. I mean, there's a hell of a talent pool at the top. Dragunov. I mean, there's so much talent on Monday Night Raw that there's arguments for it. And we don't even mention Jey Uso. I mean, he's another one there as well. So it's tough to be the guy on Monday Night Raw. But it's obvious to see that new talents can get to the top, as Priest is there and Gunther is the next challenge.
That's a great point. Just how talented and deep the main event scene is right now, with how many main event guys they could potentially have in the WWE. Because in like 2017, I think that was about the year that Finn got called up and won the Universal title. Maybe I'm a year or two off. I don't know. Correct me, chat. But nonetheless, at the time, Finn Balor was one of the few stars, true main eventers in the company. And I think that's why he got that opportunity. But like you said, you named all those names. That's just Monday Night Raw. You can go over to Friday Night SmackDown and basically do the same thing. So it's not indicative, like you said, of Finn Balor and his talents. It's just, we got a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and not everybody's going to get fed.
Absolutely. I hope I get fed. No, I'm kind of like enjoying my food, so I'd be a bit disappointed. Pierre says that he thinks that Gunther will become the new world heavyweight champion. Certainly, for me, I just feel there's an argument it can go either way at this point, but we'll talk about it more in a couple of seconds. Let me tell you, Damian Priest is the only person in Judgment Day that is still loyal to Mummy Rhea Ripley. 100% agree with you there, Pierre.
Yep.
Ed says, I don't know what you do for Gunther in Berlin if he loses here. I think this is what I'm going to say. If Priest retains, something is going to be, again, a shenanigan that will give Gunther a reason for the rematch. And if Gunther has a reason for the rematch, he can then win it in Berlin.
I think that's the way to do it if Priest was going to retain. But that's one of those matches when I look at the SummerSlam card as of today, I'm like, it could go either way. And I'd be okay with either way, too. Like, Gunther doesn't need to win at SummerSlam. Would I like to see him win at SummerSlam? Yes. But Damian Priest, like we said earlier, as of late, has been clicking on all cylinders. So if they want to keep it on him, keep it on him. I won't be mad.
Absolutely. And it feels like he's got a point to prove. I think it's that thing of where everyone says, like, oh, he's a transitional champion. I think almost to a point it's been delaying the story further of like, no, Priest is having a proper run with this. And obviously now it's at SummerSlam. If it gets to another month after, it's like 5-6 months of holding the championship. So it's like he would have had a credible run. It's not 4 years like Roman, which I think people have got used to now. I've seen some people online say transitional champion or short championship reign when it's 6 months. I'm like, you don't remember the old days, man. There was like 6 weeks you were lucky if a championship stayed with the same person.
6-month reign was a long reign in 2012. I'll tell you that.
Exactly. So yeah, but I mean Gunther. I mean for me, if it was my choice right now, Gunther would win here. But they've got the feels that could be dragged over another month. We'll have to wait and see. Gunther right now has to be the despicable heel with the fans who wants to be booed by the fans. He certainly does indeed, and is doing a great job of it. We've got mention of Logan Paul and LA Knight. Yeah. It's a match that we waited for since the SmackDown before Money in the Bank last year in the segment of Grace and Waller effect between Logan and LA Knight. You're looking forward to this one, I imagine, and this is another match potentially that screams time for a new champion.
You got that right, Steve. I was just going to say, I'm going to put 100% certainty on this match because I don't just want it to happen. I think it needs to happen. LA Knight, if it's not now, just send him to the mid-card for the rest of his career because, man, we feel you can make a case that we've already missed the boat on LA Knight, that you missed a couple moments that he could have had last year by winning Money in the Bank. But if it's not here in Logan Paul's home state, I think he'd be screwed. So I think a 100% certainty, LA Knight has to defeat Logan Paul here.
Does it harm the fact that SummerSlam is in Cleveland, which is where Logan Paul is from?
Don't hometown people always lose?
Usually. And it would give Logan Paul a bit of a salty reason to go back after the title.
Steve, don't do this to me. Don't put that in my head. I don't want to think about it. But my only complaint about Logan Paul, he's fantastic. We are getting him sporadically, but the main thing out of all this title run is just 2 title defenses in 200 days. The title should just be defended a little bit more. I love Logan Paul as a wrestler. I don't care what he does outside of the ring, but at least show up and defend the title. So that's why I think LA Knight has to win at SummerSlam, because we need a full-time mid-card champion on SmackDown.
Completely agree. And the thing is, with so many talents on SmackDown right now that could do with that mid-card championship to fight for. So for me, I think it is the right time now for it to come back full-time onto the roster. Logan has done everything he can do with that championship for the time being. And if not, he could always go and win it back in about 6 months or a year or so.
He might.
Pierce says, we don't want to acknowledge Solo. We all want to acknowledge Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns will always be our one and only tribal chief. Eric says, though, he will unfortunately join Jimmy and Roman soon. I'm guessing talking about Jey Uso there, because we are a few minutes behind the chat at this point. We're going to try and catch up with you all. Since 2020, we always had a return at SummerSlam. Absolutely, indeed. So potentially, we've talked about 2 or 3 on this show. So if you want to pick your favorite or give someone you want to mention, let us know.
I was going to say, that's funny he mentioned 2020. I have been at every single SummerSlam since 2020. There's a fun fact for you right there.
That is a fun fact. If you had to, then, at this moment, which has been the best of those SummerSlams you've been to up to now?
The shirt I am wearing right here, I think it was 2022 in Nashville, main event where Brock Lesnar brought out a freaking tractor and tipped the ring. That was so cool. And that was also the formation of Damage Control, where we didn't know what Dakota Kai's next move was going to be, and she showed up at SummerSlam with Io, with a heel Bayley, and I think that kind of was the start of something different in the WWE after that SummerSlam right there. I think that's when Triple H actually took over full creative control for the first time, so I think that one just hits a little close to home, so I'd probably say 2022, because last year, it was okay. It wasn't great, it was just okay to me.
Yeah, I mean, of those 3, I think 2022 would be the standout as well. And of course, yeah, the tractor has to be one of the major highlights there. Never forget it. Hi, Shagger. Hope you're doing well. Says Roman versus Solo for Bad Blood. There's a big prediction for you there. I've got it personally at WrestleMania currently.
Oh, no Roman versus Rock at WrestleMania?
I have a feeling it could be Cody versus Rock, the undisputed champion versus the People's Championship.
That's fair. Fair enough.
I don't know if people will like that, but obviously with the stuff that happened at WrestleMania of Mr. Popularity, I think it's going to be a story based around who is the real People's Champion.
Makes sense to me.
Good work. Pierce says, I think they're going to be one thing we can all agree on Bloodline versus Bloodline in War Games match, Survivor Series this year. Sounds good to me.
Yep. I'm all in for that. And where's Survivor Series again? Is it in Brooklyn or something like that? The East Coast, I think.
I think it's going to be in Los Angeles. I think I saw.
Huh.
I think so. I think LA is the spot. I think it's a new venue.
Chicago last year, so yeah, that's good that they're moving a little bit.
Yeah, it's good to see. I feel like, unfortunately, Jay is just a tag team guy. It feels like there is that feeling that he is going to be that way. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to quote the podcast dad from the Wrestling Junkies, but he always asks, name your favorite Jey Uso singles match. And it's hard to sit there and be like, yeah, that one. And that's where people go back to, yeah, he's a tag guy. But he still can go as a singles guy.
He still can go as a singles guy, but I get your point. It's not Jimmy Uso at WrestleMania, that's for sure.
That was the worst match at WrestleMania, and it was a great WrestleMania, so that's saying a lot.
Absolutely. And Nick Stephen House, hope you're doing well, dude. This is my fears. What happens when the Bloodline story ends? Because you got a load of Samoans. What happens to them all? Some to NXT, some to Raw, some to SmackDown.
I had that conversation the other day with Ian. I genuinely think that half of these Bloodline members that we are seeing right now could be in another company in a couple of years. The WWE just brings them in for this story. And I believe even Jacob Fatu has gone on record before saying, hey, even if I was in WWE for a cup of coffee, that was a success. So my answer to that is they could be just gone. Maybe they're just using him for this story. It could be a possibility.
It could very well be. We have to wait and see. I mean, it used to be very common back in the 90s. People would come in for this story, then they would be off again, and that's how it would go. So, yeah, it's a possibility that can be the case. If not, NXT, like you said, just spread them out a little bit everywhere. Just, sprinkle.
I was going to ask you what you would do with it.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best thing to do because once for me, I think this story could go on for a long time. If they want to do this could be like we mentioned War Games, for example, but this can go through to WrestleMania. And I think eventually from there, you can lead to the line that Rock takes Solo's spot and it then goes for Roman and then you start building it for Rock and Roman. So I think you've got a lot you can still do with it for another sort of, between 6 and 18 months if you wanted to. But yeah, what happens after that? Hopefully you've built someone like Jacob Fatu up to be a number one guy as well by that point.
Yeah, I think Jacob Fatu is definitely going to be the star that shines the brightest coming out of all this. And, it's just crazy to think that this story, the Bloodline story, has been going on for years and years where factions don't even last that long. And it's honestly, it's just, you don't know what direction they're going to go. You don't know what inning they're in, to quote Paul Heyman, because apparently they were in the 7th inning a couple months ago. Well, if they're in the 7th inning, we're going to extra innings in this one, guys. That's a little baseball go for you.
And you know what? I feel like we got a home run out of that one as well. Because someone that doesn't even follow baseball, I felt like I got where you're going with that, my friend. Temple's in the house. Hope you're doing well, Temple. Thank you for joining us. What's up, guys? We've got Shagger here says that Damian Priest to retain. Dom turns on Rhea, I think. That's some predictions nice and early from Shagger. PS says Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes teaming. It's like Superman and Batman team. It certainly is indeed. It's got that, as you said earlier, a bit of an Avengers feel about it, doesn't it? Temple goes on to say, I really want Roman to come back at SummerSlam, and the following week he gives back Sami Zayn the shirt. The reaction it would get. Do you see Sami being a part of this story again at some point down the line?
I do. But the big question is, does he drop the title to Braun Breaker? I think he does. So that definitely opens him up for this story. So whatever result we get at SummerSlam is going to show you what direction I think Sami is going next.
Absolutely. For me, if I had to guess right now, I would say initially Sami would drop the IC title, and that would actually free open Sami and Jade to go for the tag team titles since they won on Monday Night Raw this past week against JD and Finn.
Yeah, that's something. I like that.
And then once they finished off with the Judgment Day storyline, if they're aligned with Rhea and Damian Priest in just that sort of why where we do the War Games that side, maybe we can then start shifting Jey and Sami over and they can start entering into the Bloodline storyline.
You're making sense. Steve's cooking over here, folks. I 100% agree with you there. I would love to see that.
I'm trying to season. That's what I'm trying to do at this point. It's hard to space this stuff out, man. It's really hard. PS says Charlotte Flair for what to confront Nia to have a Queen versus Queen match. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah, he's onto something there. That's another reason she can return.
Absolutely. Temple says Charlotte Flair versus Zelina Vega. Winner keeps Andrade.
I think Charlotte's going to win that one.
I think so as well. Charlotte really is a machine there. NXT says with SummerSlam 2026 confirmed to be 2 nights. Is there a chance 25 could also be 2 nights? I think WWE has suggested that 26 will be the first one.
Yeah, I think that's what they're advertising it as. And I'm not sure. Did they come up with a date for next year yet? Because we know where 2026 is going to be.
Yeah, that's the weird thing. We know everything with 26, yet we don't know anything about 25. But I remember Michael Cole was making a huge deal of like, 25, and where was 25 going to be? It's like something made me feel like that could be international, but I don't know.
I was going to say that. I was going to say, what if they go to the UK for that? Because we know Indianapolis is going to get a SummerSlam eventually because it's part of that 3 PLE deal that they are doing with the WWE. But if Michael Cole is kind of hinting towards it and hyping it up, I would love to see, a SummerSlam overseas for sure. We've seen the crowds and how great they've been recently when they go just for B-level PLEs.
Absolutely, yeah. To be fair, I mean, France certainly. The thing they said after the French show was a stadium. I think Nick Khan mentioned message Triple H in the 70 that they mentioned in the press conference, so that wouldn't be a surprise to me either if they did something like that.
Let's do it.
Pierre says it's historic because CM Punk is going to have his first one-on-one match in WWE in 10 years. Very true. Very true.
Isn't it crazy? He's been back since November. We still haven't got a one-on-one match with him.
It's madness, really. But I suppose injuries do play their part. And Punk has had a few of them over recent years. So I would say that if he's fit and good to go now, which he's meant to be cleared, I think it's time to wrap him up in some cotton wool. Absolutely, at this point. Just quickly, because actually, Pierre, you're on point. You're on point for me of where I want to go with this. Do you think Seth Rollins shouldn't have been the referee of this match, or everything that's happened between Drew and Punk should it have just stayed between those two? Or I'm going to add further to this question: should it have been a triple threat match?
I'm going to say no to the triple threat. I don't really have a good reasoning behind it. Maybe I just want to see Punk versus Drew one-on-one. And of course, with Seth Rollins as a special guest referee, it's not truly a one-on-one match because we know Seth Rollins is going to do something in this match. But I definitely think he was the right choice. This would have been my decision to have Seth Rollins be the special guest referee, just knowing the history that he has with both these guys. And it's a different kind of history because with Drew and Seth, we've actually seen them fight for titles multiple times in recent memory. But with Punk and Seth Rollins, it's kind of just been a verbal war over social media that we were supposed to get at WrestleMania, apparently, but we kind of had to put a pause in that storyline. But that also is just going to be a little bit of a cherry on top, just having Seth Rollins interact with CM Punk in this match, maybe do some weird things. So no to the triple threat. Yes, Seth Rollins was the right decision for special guest referee, and I'm curious on what you think of all this.
So originally I predicted, I always do at the start of every month, I do a match card predicted video. And I went for the triple threat match. That was my expectation because of the fact that Seth was cost at Money in the Bank along with Drew. And Seth has said consequences come along with that, just like what Punk has said to Drew McIntyre. But I do think you can achieve the same goal with Seth being the referee. I thought with a triple threat match, if Punk has come back, he is being protected a little bit. Like he doesn't have to do all the work. But still, it must be that Punk is good to go. And I think here, by doing this with the special guest referee, you can achieve the same result. Now, a lot of people have speculated with an old retro finish to an old SummerSlam back in 1997. Fun enough, featured Shawn Michaels as a special guest referee against, and it was Bret Hart versus The Undertaker. Shawn was not getting on with either guy at the time, and Bret Hart, Shawn had a steel chair in his hand. Bret spat in Shawn Michaels' face. That was enough for Shawn to swing the chair. Shawn missed Bret, hit Undertaker over the head, and Bret got the 1, 2, 3, which Shawn reluctantly counted. Now, if something like that was to play out here, it would work out perfectly because it would cause friction further in the storylines going forward, particularly with Punk and Drew, because it's not a clean finish, but especially, in my opinion, if it is actually that Drew McIntyre picks up the victory. Because if Drew picks up the victory, then he can gloat he's beaten CM Punk. He finally gets off this horrible streak he's had on PLEs as well, which he gets to gloat over. Punk can be really upset with the fact that, Seth Rollins has cost him the match, but still wants to get his revenge with Drew first. And then Seth can say, well, you know what? I'm not happy with the way it played out, but I did tell you, CM Punk, that those actions you did at Money in the Bank, they have consequences. So that's why I have a feeling that sort of finish at SummerSlam 97 that people are speculating might actually just be on point.
That makes a lot of sense, and the internet's connecting a lot of dots for us too, because I obviously have not seen SummerSlam 1997. I was only 4 years old, but I will go back and rewatch that match. Now that you mention it, that seems like a very interesting one to catch up on. But I think too, with the Drew McIntyre CM Punk feud, that they didn't add the bad blood PLE without a thought of main eventing with Drew McIntyre and CM Punk, in my opinion. that has to be the main event. Hell in the Cell, steel cage, whatever, brutal stipulation you can add to it. I think that is the perfect PLE for this feud to end. But you mentioned Drew winning, because of some shenanigans of sorts. I think Drew has to win this first matchup. I think Drew definitely needs to get his lick back. Essentially, CM Punk should be the heel in this feud. He's the one that's just ruining Drew's hopes and dreams, but at the same time, Drew is bringing family into this, so that's obviously a personal thing. But just as another one of those stories, Steve, that there's a lot of different paths they can go. Which one are they going to choose?
And that's the key ingredient here. We'll have to wait and see which way they're going to go with it. But NXT has moved on and said he's gutted that there's no custody of Dominic Mysterio match.
Tuck said it should be Dominic on a pole match.
On a pole match, absolutely. Well, as long as he's not dancing, it's totally fine for me.
Just have him hanging by a shirt hanger. There you go.
Well, I mean, it'd be better than Viagra on a pole, which was done back in the day. Not in WWE, thankfully. WCW 2000 had Viagra on a pole match. You wonder why I had it bad.
Yeah, what killed WCW? I think that sentence right there.
Yeah, it certainly did indeed. Noob and Co says, who's the face and who's the heel in the feud with Drew out Punk? For me, I think Punk is the face. I think Drew is the heel because Drew is the one that's injured Punk, and I think that Drew just won't let it go. I think that Drew has to milk it and he has to rub it in CM Punk's face. Punk goes and does dastardly things like costing Drew in Scotland, but I think that Drew has been hypocritical all the time. Like, for example, take Money in the Bank. Money in the Bank is something that he actually hates. He thinks that people shouldn't cash in Money in the Bank. He's been cashing on twice, but yet he's happy to enter the match, win the briefcase, and cash it in mid-match when other superstars are vulnerable. So that's the bits that make it show for me that Drew is still the heel in this.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I mean, on paper, I would agree with you. I think CM Punk's definitely the face. Drew McIntyre's the heel. And you can listen to the crowd. They're telling you that is the answer as well. But I could understand why people would look at it from the opposite side of things. I think it's all perception with this feud, which is another thing. What I'm loving with WWE right now is you can't definitively say this person's a babyface. Sure, you can for a few, but not everybody. Like, you kind of question, are they a babyface? Are they a heel? Or are they just kind of towing the line, if you will? So that's just another wrinkle right there.
Extensions of themselves, which of course can lead to good and bad actions, which, to be fair, I think adds some fun elements to it as well. Temple says exactly what we're just talking about with the 1997 reference there. Certainly is something that does have that feeling in the air. Pierre says, I actually think that the match with Punk and Drew, Seth will turn heel and help Drew beat CM Punk, and the feud will then be Rollins and CM Punk will get started that way.
We can't just do a one-off with Drew and Punk, guys. I mean, I agree with him. I think Seth definitely could turn heel, and I don't know if you saw it, Steve, but apparently there's a leaked video of Seth Rollins' new theme song. I don't know if that's true or not, but it does have heelish vibes to it. But yeah, I don't know if we want to go right into Rollins Punk right after SummerSlam.
I think this should be the ingredient of where Punk needs to finish off Drew, and then he comes back for Rollins and say that I've not forgotten what you've done. Maybe it's an opportunity. Let's hypothetically say 3 or 4 months down the line, Rollins is back in the title picture because he can go for the title again, for example. I know he technically can already anyway because of the stupid storyline, but but like, just say that, and that's the point that Punk costs him, and it's like, right, okay, now my focus is you now, and I think that's when you can go over it from there. But certainly I agree with you. It should not be one and done for sure.
Isn't this awesome? Man, this card is going to be fun just because you really don't know what's going to happen. Expect the unexpected, if you will.
Absolutely. It's exciting to say the least. Eric's suggesting we could get Gunther versus the Mad Dragon if he's healthy. I think we're talking about Bash at Berlin here. Would love to see it personally. P.S. says, do you think Nia Jax should win the WWE's Women's Championship because I feel like Bayley sucks as a face champion? Tell us how you really feel, Pierre.
I appreciate the honesty. I don't fully agree, but I can see the critique. Her run hasn't been the best, but I don't think that's Bayley's fault.
No, I don't think it's been Bayley's fault. I think the booking hasn't worked. I like the match of Backlash. Things have been a bit sour since, but I think Nia, potentially could be winning here, but we'll wait. I need a little bit more storytelling on SmackDown just before we get there.
Correct me if I'm wrong, real quick. Chelsea Green never actually got a world title shot against Bayley, correct?
I don't believe so. I'm going to say I don't believe so.
Should have. I think that's a missed opportunity just based off of the momentum she had from Money in the Bank.
I personally would be all in favor for that. I'm loving what Chelsea Green is delivering right now in WWE. Temple says we get Priest versus Balor for the world title at Berlin, or Gunther versus Dragunov for the world title at Berlin.
Yeah.
Which match would you choose in your opinions?
Damn, that's tough, Temple. That is. Steve, you go first. I want you to answer first. I don't know.
Gunther versus Dragunov. I mean, it's there, isn't it? I would not be against seeing that on the main roster. It's been NXT UK, NXT. I need it on the mains as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the better match. They both would be fantastic and both have history. So it's just like 1A and 1B for me, but I guess I would agree with you probably just because it's in Berlin that it should be Gunther and Dragunov. But
yeah,
you can
that's
still
also
do Priest and Balor without the title.
Do you know what? I was going to say the exact same thing. I feel, if anything, that match is stemmed from the fact that Balor costs Priest the title. Right. So I think that's why that one would be without the world title. But I agree with you. Location plays its part as well. Speaking of locations, after Drew losing in Scotland, Logan losing in Cleveland, a very high possibility.
Good call, NXT. That is NXT, right?
It is indeed. Yeah, absolutely. Dan the Man Williams in the house as well. We're doing well, Dan. And he's been training to be a professional wrestler. He's been tearing up the indie scene in Wales. He says, I'm shocked Gable versus Howdy isn't on this card.
Give it time. They still could add it next week. I wouldn't be surprised if they added DIY versus the Tongans either. There could be one or two matches that they add, and that definitely could be one of them. I don't know if I need to see it quite yet. I don't know your opinion on that, but yeah, it could happen.
I feel like it would be a nice feeling as The Fiend debuted 5 years ago at SummerSlam. So to have Howdy have his first match at SummerSlam, I think would be a nice sort of like, was it synergy? I believe is the right word for it, where they're both aligned together at the same time in that sort of way. So I would like that, but otherwise it isn't 100% needed. And obviously, I think there was space for one or two more matches, but Bobby in house, hope you're doing well, Bobby. Thanks for joining us. Says, do you guys think there'll be a pre-show match at SummerSlam? I think there's a possibility there could be.
Yeah, I think one of the matches I just mentioned could be DIY versus Tama Tonga and Tongaloa. I think that'd be a good, match to get the people involved because Johnny's from Cleveland as well, so getting him on the card would be, I think, a good decision.
I think it'd be a really good decision. I also think the women's tag team titles could be on the line as well. There, Bianca and Jade are looking for that rematch. It just was weird to not have Bianca on a SummerSlam for me, but still, it could also be a small spot on the main show as well.
I was going to say, I just saw the Hot Ones versus on YouTube between Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill, and they were promoting SummerSlam, and then I sat back and I thought, I'm like, Bianca and Jade aren't on the SummerSlam card. I know they're just doing business, but it's still weird that they're not on this card.
It seems crazy that they're not on the card, but I just say I do think we will get a new briefcase for Tiffany Stratton there. And Pierre's comment just a couple of seconds ago there, which would be quite cool to see. But yeah, it's shocking to see that not on there. And I have seen that video, by the way. It's pretty fun. Do recommend people to go on the socials and check it out. Would you like to see Pat McAfee wrestle in 2024? Certainly a lot more than I'd like to see his crew on the DLC.
Why is everybody so mad about that? I know not a lot of people are going to want to play with those DLC characters, but it's a cool moment for Pat and his buddies. I mean, I get the frustration, but I'm a Pat McAfee fan, so yes, my answer is yes, I would like to see Pat McAfee wrestle in 2024.
Yeah, I'm not against seeing Pat McAfee wrestle, and usually it's quite entertaining when it does happen. It needs to be in the right spot on the right story. Maybe against the Wyatt, that could work quite well. They're invading his show a lot, so maybe they could get the crew involved. Maybe it could be a Survivor Series match. Give us a reason to use that DLC.
I know it's not 2024. Long play here. Adam Cole and Pat McAfee finished their story at WrestleMania 45. I'm just going to throw that out there randomly.
Long-term storytelling at its finest. Absolutely. Eric says, who was the big return from SummerSlam last year? That's a very good question. One that I'd need to Google, I'm afraid, because my brain's not working that quickly.
There was no return on that card that I can remember. I think the moment, though, was EO cashing in.
Maybe EO cashing in, yeah. I can't remember, to be honest, Eric, at this particular moment. I'd have to come back for that at a later time. I do think Pat McAfee is a good wrestler. He's fine at what he does for someone that's a part-timer.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Sorry, I was taking a drink.
That's fine. Dan says there's no coincidence they paired Jey and Sami together just in time for Roman to return. I think he could be onto something.
Yeah, like Steve was saying earlier, and just pay attention. It's going to happen, I think.
It could happen indeed. Silk says Survivor Series currently not announced. Imagine if we get it at SummerSlam, and of course that being the UK. SummerSlam with rain would be lovely, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. That'd be good.
Shame Samoa Joe's still not around. With a chance to get the poncho on again. Do you know what I mean?
No,
The rain
not
that could be
that
amazing.
again.
That would be quite fun, wouldn't
Poor
it?
Joe.
Poor Joe, indeed. Poor Joe is in AEW right now, and it's not been booked well with the Jericho storyline. But hey, that's a different topic for a different day. And Steve says Bloodline, the new NWO, since there's no original members that are part of it. Technically got a point.
Solo. Oh yeah, Solo's not original. He came in at Clash at the Castle. Yeah, that's a good point.
Does make a good point there. I'm going to try and catch up with the comments because we've only got a rapid 10 minutes to go, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm going to try and get as many as we can in that time. Since he returned at Survivor Series 2023, I don't see the red hot CM Punk. We always love to. It's clear I want CM Punk to be the red hot CM Punk back in 2011. We all love. I don't think he's just had the chance to have that momentum. It's been a bit start-stop, and I think that's the reason why.
Injuries. That's the only answer. It's nothing of Punk's wrongdoing. Punk is, in my opinion, clicking on all cylinders, at least on the microphone.
Absolutely, yeah. And the microphone is working for me. Like I said, it's the feud I'm most looking forward to at SummerSlam is him versus Drew. Bobby asking thoughts on Lash Legend and Shakara Jackson wrestling against Alba Fine Isla Dawn.
Do we get a title change? That's my question.
I don't think so. But then I'm giving away my NXT predictions for tomorrow, so I probably shouldn't do that.
I'll say retain. I'm not too excited for it. I'm not a big metaphor guy, to be honest with you.
No, me neither. Not at this time, to be fair. Sid says, are you looking forward to the return of Charlotte Flair, the Queen? Absolutely.
Yes. My goat. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, she'll be missed when she's retired. That's all I will say at this. And I think it's been a nice break for, I think, fans to appreciate when she comes back, hopefully. NXT says, fingers crossed, Rollins has the most outlandish ref attire for SummerSlam. This is the comment I have been waiting for.
I'm surprised nobody's even thought about that. What kind of getup are we going to see Seth Rollins wearing? That's going to be the story of the night.
It's going to be wild, and I can't wait to see it. It's going to be something out there. There's no way it's going to be traditional, that's for sure.
I'm going to Google crazy referee outfits and see if we can find anything that he could potentially wear.
I like it. And in the meantime, we will answer the question from Sid. Do you think WWE would bring back Lana or Ric Flair since both of them has left AEW? I think Flair can end up on a Legends deal, maybe a very occasional cameo. Lana, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know.
I'd rather see, and I know they're not together anymore, internet, but I would rather see Miro, a.k.a. Rusev, return to the WWE because where's he at? I don't see him on TV.
Yeah. He's not been there for a long, long time. I don't know if he's injured or not, but he's been away for a long time. It's crazy indeed. But never say never when it comes to the returns. Cora Jade should have been the special guest referee, Eric. She knows she's injured at the minute. Probably wouldn't work for now, but maybe one day. One day when Punk is in NXT.
Cora and Punk tag together since they're both injured.
Absolutely. Is Punk the best in the world?
No.
Not right now. Not right now.
But self-proclaimed, yes.
Yes. The catchphrase, yes. Legitimately, no. I got angry when Drew didn't apologize to the referees. I hate Drew a lot. Hey, he's working the magic.
Good job, Drew. You're doing your job right then, buddy.
Absolutely. Another one as well that was a disaster for WCW in 2000, the Bagwell on a pole patch, which of course ended up becoming the Judy Bagwell on a forklift match. Yes, this sort of thing existed. Vince Russo is a delusional booker.
Wow. I am glad I was not a wrestling fan back then.
I highly recommend the Vice series, What Killed WCW. It really goes through. Yeah, it's a very good series, that.
Very good.
So it says, your thoughts that Drew mentioned Colt Cabana in his tweet.
When did he do that?
So it was regarding a T-shirt proposal from WWE, which I think was about getting a name on a T-shirt. And Drew pretty much said that I've never had to get a wrestler's name on a T-shirt. And pretty much said it's as spicy of a... Yeah, along that line. Yeah.
Yeah, there it is.
Aging as well as Colt Cabana. How are you doing? Yeah.
That's tough. I love this. They don't give a crap anymore. They just let their talent say whatever they want on social media.
Absolutely. And Punk must have approved that, surely. That's all I can
sure.
say. Tino, what's up, guys? Good to see you, Tino. As always, hope you're doing well. Tino's got another one. He's hyped, by the way. I think that's to do, though, with SummerSlam and also the football being added in 2K24. I know that he certainly is a McAfee guy as well. PS says, I think Bayley it sucks. I'm really not invested in the face character as champion right now, and that's why I think she sucks, which pretty much is creative. I don't think Bayley should have a feud, should really adds a feud with depths. And saying that as well, look at the depth we're getting with Rhea and Liv at the moment on Raw. To be fair, it is a much better book storyline.
Yeah, but once again, that's not the talent's fault. That's who's booking the stories.
Yeah, and absolutely indeed. Eric here says, my level of excitement for each match so far is 1A for Liv and Rhea, 1B. Okay, fair enough, Mike. So right, okay, I see where you're going with it. So we'll quickly go around out of 10 then on these matches then. So if you'd go Liv and Rhea out of 10.
I don't know. 8.
I'll go for a 9. Drew versus Punk.
10.
10 for me as well. Sami versus Braun.
7.
7 for me as well, especially if Braun wins this time. Nia versus Bayley.
6.
5, I'd say, if I'm honest. Fair. Solo versus Cody.
5, if I'm being honest. But I'm more interested in what happens after.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to say an 8 purely because of I believe that someone is coming back. That's pretty much my reasoning why. We're going to go through 1 or 2 more comments, and then we will wrap things up here today. Tina's on episode 2 of WCW, What Killed It, and keeps falling asleep. Well, obviously, whatever it was WCW was doing wasn't working, so probably not a bad thing, Tino, if I'm honest. It's probably not your fault.
He found out what killed WCW.
Absolutely. Pierre says, Drew is a menace, and I love it. Worst wrestling match of all time, Rosie O'Donnell versus Donald Trump from Raw 2007. It's on there in the Peacock somewhere. It's not the real one of them. Yeah, you don't need to go back and see it. Honestly. And yeah, I think we've actually got with most of the comments, which gives me, thank goodness, a couple of minutes just to mention it. I want your thoughts on not seeing Bobby Lashley at SummerSlam. Apparently been taken off the internal roster. Looks like MVP as well, along with Tamina. Probably not so surprised with Tamina. But do you think there is a small potential that we could get the Hurt Business, or I don't know, a different name of the Hurt Business in AEW with Bobby Lashley, MVP, and Shelton Benjamin?
Yeah, I definitely think there's a strong possibility of that happening. I believe they've gone on record saying that they are interested in bringing back an iteration of that group to AEW. And if you look at AEW as a whole, their roster is jam-packed with talent. They have too much talent, you could argue. But they don't have a Bobby Lashley. They don't have a dominant big guy. They tried it with Brian Cage. It's not working. It's too inconsistent. They tried it with Wardlow. Where's he been? I don't know. Lance Archer would have been a great candidate. Never gave him the opportunity. Bobby Lashley is a guy that you can bring into your company, and right away he'll make an impact. And like you said, Shelton Benjamin is a free agent, and if MVP's contract is the same as Bobby's, you bring them all together, maybe add a couple pieces, reunite Lio Rush with him in AEW.
Oh, yes.
Who says no? There's your new Hurt Business. So, yeah, I'd love to see that.
Another person that was rumored to be a part of the group, which they didn't take him in the end, was Ricochet, who's also a free agent.
Let's bring Ricochet into that group as well, and Lio Rush. Ricochet, Lio Rush, MVP, Shelton Benjamin, and Bobby Lashley in AEW.
It works perfectly as well as MVP now solely seems to be the mouthpiece. I don't know if he still is in ring competing, so I think that would actually be a perfect fit and a perfect group. And do you know what's also been a perfect fit? Having you on the show again, Carl. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you here. And obviously, for those that are not aware of where you are on YouTube, they should right now, but tell them all about yourself.
Yeah, guys, I host a weekly podcast. You see the logo on my hat and behind me, the On the Mark Wrestling Podcast. We go live every Thursday, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Sometimes that does change. You know, we got 3 of us co-hosts, so we have busy schedules, like Tuck, who is unavailable this week, but we will be recording an episode tomorrow still. And you can keep up with us on all the socials at Pod On The Mark. We're on X, we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok. Occasionally, we have a couple episodes a week. Like last week, we sat down with free agent Missa Kate, who is formerly with the NWA. I highly recommend everybody checks that one out. If you know about Missa, she is fantastic. And I kind of have an idea of where she's going to be landing very soon. I'm not going to say anything else after that. But I am going to say, Steve, once again, an absolute pleasure to be on the channel. I always love chopping it up with you. Hopefully next time I don't have a time constraint and we can do this for 2 hours. That'd be fine with me. But yeah, it was a pleasure. Thanks again.
It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show as always. And like I say, go and check out Kyle on the Mark Wrestling podcast. New episode dropping tomorrow on Thursday. And of course, they'll be doing their SummerSlam predictions next week as well. And they've got the very merch as well.
We do. Look at that. Steve's rocking the honorary Mark t-shirt on the markwrestlingpodcast.com.
Highly recommend. And also, do you have a link now for WWE merch as well?
We do. I don't have it on me since I don't have my StreamYard set up, but if you go to our profile on X at Pot on the Mark, you'll find it there in the link tree. Which, by the way, if you guys, any of you watching live or at a later time are going to be in Cleveland next weekend, hit me up. I'd love interacting with everybody. I was just talking to Steve before we recorded. It's crazy what the internet can do for the wrestling community. Sure, everybody likes to point out the negativity and the bad eggs in our community, but I have developed so many friendships like the one I have with Steve over here just by logging into X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. So I want to build some more relationships. I'll be in Cleveland next week from Thursday to Sunday, AIW on Thursday, GCW on Friday, SummerSlam and AIW on Saturday. So catch me at any one of those shows. I'll see you then.
Absolutely fantastic. Make sure to do so indeed. You will not be having a bad time if you spend some time with Carl. And join him on, of course, YouTube tomorrow. Pierre asked if he can be an honorary Mark. You certainly can do indeed, my friend. And shout out to Robbie Collins as well, who's joined us in the chat. Hope he's doing well. I did an interview on his channel, and make sure to go and check it out at Turnbuckle Talk Zone. It was a lot of fun to be a part of on that channel. And the link is in my community tab if you want to go and find it. So just go into the community tab. You can click the link and go straight to that interview. And of course, if enjoyed this video, hit the like button, share with a friend, and subscribe as well. Do all the good stuff because it really helps this channel, and we're on the road to SummerSlam as well. But look after yourselves and each other. Take care. We'll see you for the next video. All the best. Take care, and I'll see you tomorrow night for NXT Great American Bash predictions.